Sometimes the difference between madness and genius is all about perspective. Check this out. Alright, so I've put the front fender back on and obviously the fascia to go with it. The fascia will help control the fore-aft placement of the fender, and then I can start bolting it on piece by piece to make sure everything fits. Now I've come up with, I think is going to be a solution. I don't know how involved it's going to be, but here's what I got in mind. So I'd mentioned the cowl fit was not going to work for me. It doesn't fit like it should, and I really honestly was perplexed for a while. How am I going to get the stuff to get together? So I tried spacing it from the bottom with some foam that I had in the shop just as an experiment, and really the fender was just too darn strong. It always pulled away from the metal cowl, and it always had this dip. You can see where it doesn't fit all the way up through here. So the solution I've come up with, at least temporarily, if it's not going to be the permanent thing, is that I'm going to put 2 pieces of tape on here. I'm going to mark 2 places, drill 2 holes in here, and then put 2 screws literally from inside the cowl going out through the metal into the plastic fender or the fiberglass fender. Now it's kind of a trick, and it's going to be tricky to do because I have to reach down inside there and come through there with a screw and a socket and all that kind of stuff. But I have some fantastic screws that I used on the bottom of the rear flares that I showed you. And I think this is going to be the case where it's going to at least temporarily adjust it to make it stay to the metal, and I can adjust it up and down. When I fix the screws in there, it'll stay, and that'll give me a chance to at least to see if I need to cut this fender or leave it alone and let the screws be the permanent solution. Okay, so with the holes drilled in the fiberglass, the oversized holes to allow the screws to go through, and the sheet metal, now it's time to take every extension I have, snake it down through the cowl, hold this up, tighten it. We're going to see, is this genius or another case of stupidity? sometimes the greatest things can be confused between genius and lunacy. But I tell you what, putting 2 screws in from the cowl, pulling this fender in, oh, that's the ticket. Now, I won't tell you what it took to get that to work because, well, honestly, if my arms weren't as skinny as they are and as long as my fingers are, it wouldn't work. So, this is a really bad idea for, I would guess, mostly everybody other than myself. So, what I'm thinking I'm going to have to do is just have to split these things, because trying to pull against this radius, this curvature here, trying to split that apart, it's just not going to work. It's just not. Now this will hold here, and while I split this along the seam, get everything to fit like I want, and then fiberglass over that, it will at least fit. And if I have to put them back in long term, that's fine. But I'll tell you, the curvature on these fenders just isn't going to work. They're too strong. They need to be split from each other from the upper half, so basically move them independent and then fix them back. But really, look at that fit. That is quite nice. Okay, so now that I've finished cutting, I think I've got it. I think I actually have the solution on this. So what I've done is I cut just with the hacksaw blade, because it's easy and controlled versus a Dremel or anything else. I literally split these 2 pieces, the top surface to the side. I split this down about 12.5 inches. 12 inches is a good number. I just stopped at 12.5 because it was random, but somewhere in that area. So what you see here is that the top plane now is trying to pull up and the bottom plane is trying to push in. So you can see where the stress of everything is trying to come together. One thing to note is that on the back side, remember I said I had to put the bracket on that was on the OEM fender? I never put it on. But I'll tell you, the way this fits, I really don't think I should put it on. I may try it just in case, but not convinced that I need it at this point. So if you notice, the fender gap up here is still pretty good. I can still fit my fingers into it, but at the molding line and down, it's fit to a 3/8 of an inch, which is 10 millimeters, roughly 10 millimeters. So I think I've got it to where I point. So what I'm going to have to do is this. So what I've got to do is tack these in place. What I think I'm going to do is use some strapping here and put 2 holes in on the top and a screw, and then I'm going to strap this down this way to basically pull this on top of this. I will need to then obviously fix this cut line here, sand it, blend it. But if you notice this molding piece, this actually goes underneath of it now, which is great. I will need to extend this back, I think, just to be able to fill that in. And I may build up this surface here to take up some of this gap. But I won't know that for sure until I get these 2 halves together. So a couple screws, strap it this way and basically pull it down in, because otherwise it wants to pop up and get out of the way. Now the top section here, it's a little more inboard than the door. And I may try to, this door honestly feels like it's bowed out a little bit, so I may take my body hammer in that and just give it some light loving tap and try to push it in a little bit, try to even up this surface. It feels like it's been hit with the fender, like something was in there or hit the fender before. When it opened, it basically bent this edge out. So this it's honestly not terrible fitting this stuff, but I definitely need to fix this gap. Putting my fingers in there is no good. So I need to extend this surface back towards the door and then fix the flushness just a little bit. Okay, so here's the temporary piece. Now what I've done is just basically take some strapping, and this is radio strapping I had that's basically just like a little thin piece of strapping or metal. Shot 2 screws into it, and again, these are the good screws that I'm drilling pilot holes in and then using these to pull these 2 pieces down into place. But you can look under here in that gap. So I've got this snapped in. I've got this in place to at least show you what it's going to look like. But it's probably about a 2 millimeter gap between these two. That's really not so bad. I can at least build up the surface and then blend this out a little bit here. So scuff the surface in. I can probably put down like 1 layer of fiberglass matting, fiberglass it on, and then just basically sand it till I feel like it's really where it should be. So you've got a good gap here. This is a little bit over on this side. This is about somewhere in the mil to mil and a half range. And then also this gap here split open because now I'm pulling it this way. But otherwise, this fits pretty good. So with that, I'm going to leave you with this bit of work for today. Now, of course, I need to finish up this fiberglassing here and get everything fit and get it all in. So I'm totally not sure if I just fiberglassed over this piece, if it was going to stay that way. So I may need to come up with some kind of bracketry that works on it. I'm not completely sure yet, so I've got to figure that out. But at least I know what it should look like and how to get it there. Now it's a matter of how do I make it pretty so it doesn't look like I've got a roadkill fix here. From here on out, I need to measure for wheel and tires, so that'll be the next thing I do. I do need to finish up the driver's side fender, and it's probably going to be very similar to this, where I split it, make sure it all fits, kind of bolt it in place. I'll probably even try the 2 screws in the cowl just to make sure that that's going to work. If that's a long-term solution or not, I'm really not sure. But with that, I'll leave it for this time. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and madness or genius? You guys be the judge. We'll see you next time.